welcome back to the Baseball Odds Watch podcast. I'm your host, Eddie. I'm sorry it's been a while. I've been trying to see if Instagram was going to give me back my page or not. And unfortunately, it's looking like that's not going to happen. So we're strictly TikTok and Twitter, YouTube, Spotify platform. I don't know why, like the big ones, right? Instagram and Apple Podcasts, why they're so difficult. But that's the case. And that's kind of what we're dealing with. So that's what we're dealing with, right? And we're here. This is the playoff special of the Baseball Odds Watch podcast, round one. But it's a special because the playoffs aren't decided yet. There's still a couple of teams that have to see if they're going to play tomorrow. So if you're unaware, here's the scenario. Right now, the Mets, Braves, and Diamondbacks are in this weird sort of three-way tie for the remaining two wild card spots. The season ended yesterday, and the wild card series starts tomorrow. The Mets and Braves have two games from last week that were rescheduled to a doubleheader today. So let's go over the scenarios real quick because there's only two, and that's what's going to fill up our playoff window, right? And then we'll go into our World Series odds. The Mets and Braves playing these two games. If either team sweeps, then the team that wins both games advances to the wild card. The team that wins both games will advance to the wild card. The team that loses will be eliminated. And the Diamondbacks will also advance to the wild card. Now, the other scenario, which I think is the more likely scenario, is the Mets and Braves split this doubleheader. And in that scenario, the Mets and Braves both advance. The Braves has a higher seed. And the Diamondbacks are eliminated. Now, there are only odds for the first game of this doubleheader. I think the split is the more likely outcome. The reason why is, again, the higher seed team, so the team that wins, has to go to San Diego. And right now, if it's a split, that team is Atlanta. So if the Braves win game one, they're going to rest guys. They're not going to play their starters because they've got to take a trip to San Diego. They got to play tomorrow in San Diego. So they're not going to use starters. They're not going to use high leverage bullpen in that second game. They're not going to use a lot of their big names. So that leaves that second game open to be won by the loser of the first game. Now, what I don't know, I know that Carlos Mendoza knows this. I know that Brian Snitker knows this, right? So whoever wins that first game, they're going to rest that second game. They have to. Because you potentially either A, you've got to fly all the way to San Diego, or B, you've got to play tomorrow afternoon. Either way, it's a bad look to start your guys and use your high leverage bullpen arms, because that's really what's going to be the difference maker here. Use high leverage bullpen arms in the second game if you don't need to win it. So I see the split. I like the idea of the split. And I see the Diamondbacks being sent home. Now, as far as the odds go for the doubleheader, I can only see the odds for game one. And it's Tyler McGill for the Mets and it's Spencer Schwellenbach for the Braves. Braves are minus 152 favorites to win the game. I think they've got Schwellenbach at like 5.5. He's a strikeout artist. I can see both teams emptying the chamber in game one. And especially if that's the case, right? Then it really leaves game two open. Now, here's the thing, though. If you're Carlos Mendoza or you're Brian Snitker and you're losing big in game one, what do? Do you try to salvage it, or do you just say, you know what? Let's focus on game two. And I think that because of that, managers have a little bit of leeway here. I see this going in as a split. Again, I think whoever wins game one has to give their team rest because you're either going to have to fly to San Diego or you're going to have to play tomorrow afternoon. So I think the Diamondbacks just don't know it yet, but their season has over. Their season has ended. So, yeah. So Schwellenbach, again, he's that guy. He's that guy. I think he's going to be even better next year, but he's a strikeout artist. But I don't have any real doubt in what Tyler McGill can do for the Mets. The guy can pitch. Lindor's back in that lineup, and even if he's not all the way healthy, even if he's not doing much, he ignites that team. He is that team. Hopefully, Pete Alonso's not swinging at outside pitches. I'd like to see this. I'd like to see the split. I think if you're going to have to play today, then you might as well split. So, let's jump to World Series odds. Because when you look at it, it's kind of funny. Obviously, only the teams that are still alive have World Series odds. But when you look at them, the least favorites, obviously, it makes sense, are the Diamondbacks because who knows if they even play tomorrow. Plus 4,800. Then it's the Mets, second to last favorites at plus 3,200. Then it's the Tigers, who are hot, pretty much on fire at plus 2,700. And then it's the Braves, or the fourth highest or lowest, however you want to see it. Fourth worst, fourth from the bottom are the Braves at plus 2,500. So I don't like that at all. I don't appreciate that the Tigers are the hottest team in baseball. I don't appreciate that the Braves have not even clinched playoff berth, and somehow they're more favored to win the World Series than the Detroit Tigers. It doesn't make sense. I get it. Chris Sale is probably your National League Cy Young winner, but Tarek Skubal is probably your American League Cy Young winner. Which lineup has turned it up lately? Remember, this is baseball. This is a game of streaks. So I kind of understand the idea of, well, the Braves have been here before. They do this all the time. But no. They're not even in. They're not even in the playoffs right now. And there's a chance they don't even get into the playoffs. So, how is this a thing? Let's look at the favorites. Let's look top to bottom. Let's go back to the top. We know who the favorites are, and it's the Los Angeles Dodgers at plus 350. Plus 360, second favorites are the Phillies. Listen, man. The way these brackets are set up, Dodgers, Phillies, Guardians, Yankees, those are your teams with the first round bye. The Astros are higher favorites than the Guardians. Plus 850. They're the fourth favorites. The Yankees, third favorites, plus 450. Now, it's kind of all going to depend, obviously, on how that first round ends up shaking up for both leagues, right? Fifth favorites. We're kind of all over the place today. Plus 1100, Cleveland Guardians. They've got the first round bye. They play the winner of Houston, Detroit. The Yankees, third favorites. They play the winner of Kansas City and the Orioles. Our favorites, the Dodgers, they play the winner of the San Diego series. The Phillies play the winner of the Milwaukee series. So, Dodgers favorites, second favorites, Phillies, third favorites, Yankees, fourth favorites, Houston Astros, fifth favorites, the Cleveland Guardians, sixth favorites, the San Diego Padres. They're also one of the hotter teams, and I think one of the more complete teams. Baltimore Orioles at plus 1200. They're seventh favorites. They've got to play Kansas City. Milwaukee, eighth favorites. They've got to play the winner of the loser of the Mets, Braves. Kansas City, they're playing the Orioles. Atlanta, they're playing today to see if they even make it. Detroit, they're playing Houston. Maybe that's it. And then the Mets and Diamondbacks. So let's go team by team. So bottom to top, it's the Diamondbacks, right? They're the least favorite to make the World Series, to win the World Series. If they can get in, right? If the Mets or the Braves sweep, we know what the Diamondbacks can do. We do. We've seen them do it. The problem is they're starting pitching. Who do they have? Right? Jordan Montgomery is now in the bullpen. So I can't imagine that now that you've made the playoffs, or if you make the playoffs, that you pull them out. So you've got Gallen, you've got Fott, you've got Eddie Rodriguez, maybe Merrill Kelly in a potential series against the Brewers, who can hit. The good thing is your lineup is one of the scarier ones out there, right? Because you go beyond Corbin Carroll, and you've still got Ketel Marte, who's one of the best hitters in the league, right? He hits so good that streaks are bad for him. Then you've got Eugenio Suarez, who's got 30 home runs on the regular season. Got Lourdes Gurriel, who you've put a lot of money into. Jock Peterson, who hits righty pitching very well. And then in your bullpen, Joe Manaply, AJ Puk, your closer, who's been lights out, except for the other day against the Padres in a game you needed to win. You lost it. So I get those odds. They're not in. All signs are pointing to they won't be in. But let's see what happens. Then it's the Mets. Plus 3,200. Second worst favorites, right? Again, this is dependent on a Mets win today. They'll be in. I don't see the Mets getting out of the first round no matter who they end up playing. Whether it's the Phillies, whether it's the Brewers or the Padres, I don't see them getting out of the first round. They're going to be tired, one. But two, I think they've had a really good season from their pitching. From Sean Manaea, from Luis Severino, from Tyler McGill, from David, right? But I don't think that that's a playoff team. When you look at it, Pete Alonso's just not hitting this year. So the expectation that he's going to turn it on in the playoffs in a best of 3 series, you're asking for a lot. Lindor's playing through an injury. You're asking for a lot. Jose Iglesias has kind of been a firecracker. I got it, and he's been an ignition for this team, but he's not an offensive player. Mark Vientos is great. Francisco Alvarez is great. Brandon Nimmo's having an okay year. Jeff McNeil started to pick it up different points of the year, but he's been on the bench and he's been good and he's been, very inconsistent. So we'll see what happens, but I don't think they get out of a series against Milwaukee. We'll talk Milwaukee in a second. Next, the Detroit Tigers. Now, I love this team. To me, this is the Cinderella team in this year's postseason, because I don't think anybody saw them coming. Now, I said months ago that I liked this team. I thought they'd be a playoff team. And then the deadline came and they were sellers. I was a little confused. Jack Flaherty was gone. Mark Canha, gone. Urshela, released. Didn't make a lot of sense, right? But here they are. They figured it out. They made it. Don't know what they're going to do with Kenta Maeda. I don't know who pitches for you past Tarik Skubal. But I do like that lineup. Between Riley Green and Kerry Carpenter and Parker Meadows, I like that lineup. I honestly do. Right? So when you look at the Tigers rotation, let's take a look. Got Tarik Skubal. Then it goes to Casey Mize. That's your potential guy on the mound for a clincher. And if that doesn't work, then it becomes a question mark. Is it Reese Olson? Is it Kiter Montero? And I don't know who you trust more if you're AJ Hinch, but what I do trust is AJ Hinch. Say what you want about the 17 Astros and whatever else. The dude's back in the playoffs with the Tigers. The dude's back in the playoffs with the Javier Baez Tigers. Mind you, he's injured, and all of a sudden they've started winning and found themselves in the playoffs. But I like this lineup. I do. I really like this lineup. I just don't know if they beat the Houston Astros in a 3-game series. I give them game 1 because Tarik Skubal is going to be on the mound. I don't know about games 2 and 3. Again, you're dependent on Casey Mize going against an Astros rotation that knows what they're doing. That's also hot. That's also young. And most of them are playoff experienced. Once you get past game 1, which I'm thinking is more likely going to be Framber Valdez for the Houston Astros, then you've got to face Hunter Brown or Ronel Blanco. And if it's not one of them, it's Yusei Kikuchi, who's been amazing since becoming an Astro. I don't know who you want to face less, but if any lineup can hit those guys, it's going to be that Tigers lineup. So let's see what happens for the Tigers. Then it's the Braves plus 2,500, fourth from bottom. Now we know what the Braves are coming into this with. They got Chris Sale. He's the Cy Young front runner for the National League. Then you've got Reynaldo Lopez. I mean, you just need to win 2 games in the wild card, and then the rest is kind of everyone else's problem. The lineup is the question mark because with the injuries and everything, who's hot, who's not, right? Matt Olson, is he gonna turn it up come playoff time? Ozzy Albies, he's been consistent, but is he gonna turn it up? Orlando Arcia, is he gonna turn it up? Marcell Ozuna's been your most consistent hitter, but is he gonna perform when the lights get brightest? You made the trade for Jorge Soler. He can hit in the postseason, especially with the Braves. We know this. So I'm not worried about that. It's just everybody else. It's everybody else. And then it's the bullpen because Minter's hurt. So you're running with Bummer. Iglesias is your closer. But besides those two guys, who's getting you there? Is it the journeyman? Is it Jesse Chavez? Do you trust him in a playoff game? I think there's a lot of question marks in this Braves rotation, in this Braves bullpen at least, and in that lineup. And in a series against the Padres, yeah, I don't like them. Let's move up. Fifth from bottom, we've got the Kansas City Royals. I love this team. I do. I love them off the fact that they're here. I know that the reality is they've got to face Baltimore. It's two young teams. This is going to be a fun series to watch. It's two really young teams. But I give the Orioles the slight edge because the Royals are a hurt team. The Royals got into the playoffs without winning. They lost the game and then celebrated with champagne because the Twins just lost. The Twins collapsed. And we're going to talk about that in another episode. But this is the playoff special. We're only focused on playoff teams. But the Royals, they've got the pitching, starting pitching at least, right? We know Cole Reagans is having an insane year. He's probably your game one. Seth Lugo's your game two. And if it comes to game three, it's Brady Singer. Fine. Maybe you throw Waka Lorenzen in the bullpen to buffer those guys out there and get you to the ninth inning. You've got Lucas Erceg going for you in the ninth inning. And great. But it's this lineup, though. There's so many holes. Is Salvi catching or is Salvi playing first? And if he's playing first, then that means you've got Fermin catching. He's got a cannon arm, but doesn't hit much. Pasquantino, is he going to be coming back in time? If he does, that changes things. Let's see. What's the news on the Pasquantino injury? Targeting wild card series return. So hopefully he's back for the Royals. If he is, that changes things. I think we'll see the odds jump a little bit if Vinny Pasquantino's playing. If not, it's either Salvi or Yuli Gurriel. You pick who you trust less. I mean, Yuli's old, but he's been there. Salvi's older, but he's not a first baseman, but you need him in that lineup because he's your power. And you got Michael Massey, you got Michael Garcia. These guys are all great defensively, but none of them, maybe Massey a little bit more, but none of them's your big hitter. Then you got the MVP runner-up, Bobby Witt Jr. Great, but if I don't have to pitch to him, I'm not going to. So that kind of solves that problem. Then he becomes a threat on the base pads, and then you just, sure, let's put on Salvi behind him. Now we'll pitch to Tommy Pham, or we'll pitch to Hunter Renfroe, or whoever else the Royals are going to put behind them, and then you're kind of good. This is one of those teams that's kind of just picked up a bunch of older pieces to try to make it, and it worked for the Nationals. It did. It worked for the Nationals a few years ago. So who's to say? I mean, granted, they had Max Scherzer and Spencer Strasburg, or Steven Strasburg, sorry. Max Scherzer and Steven Strasburg. right? And a young left fielder by the name of Juan Soto, but you've got Bobby Witt Jr. Cole Reagans, is he a young Max Scherzer? Is Seth Lugo old man Spencer? I mean, Steven? Who knows? I mean, let's see. Anything can happen in October baseball. They've got to face the Orioles, though. That's a great series for them. It's very winnable for the Royals. Next are 6 from bottom, so 8th favorites, the Milwaukee Brewers. And I think this is the most underestimated team in the playoffs right now. They were one of the first teams to clinch a playoff spot. And they've got wild card teams with better odds than them. The disrespect is so real. When you look at what the Brewers have been able to do, the fact that they're here after losing Corbin Burns in a trade for young talent, after losing Brandon Woodruff, injury, out for the season before it even started, after Craig Counsell, their manager, left them to coach the Cubs, the rival Cubs, this team went and won the division. They got it done. And I think the fact that everyone counted them out was a motivator. And I think that the fact that people are still counting them out should be a great motivator. I don't know what Pat Murphy's telling these guys in the locker room, in the dugout, but it's working. You're getting a great season out of Freddie Peralta. He's your guy going on game 1. Then you got Colin Rea. And then it's Tobias Myers. Now, here's the thing. When you hear those names as the 3-man rotation, you think it's over. And you agree with these odds, right? You agree that they're the 8th favorites, maybe even lower, to win the World Series. But they're here. They are here. They were here before a lot of other teams. They clinched a while ago. You count them out, and it motivates them to do what they've done. And now you're going to count them out again? I'm not gonna. I can't. I don't think anybody should at this point. One, it's October. Fine. The Brewers have not done anything in October yet. They're one of the few teams that has never won a World Series. Who's to say this year that everyone's just walking right past them while they're winning? Who's to say this isn't the year? You're having an amazing year from Willy Adames going into free agency. Jackson Chourio is one of the best rookies in all of baseball. Look, Christian Yelich went down. I forgot that happened. And he was hot when he went down, and they still got here. And you're counting this team out? You're not giving them a chance? Rhys Hoskins' revenge tour? You don't think so? Jake Bauers? I mean, sure, again, another team that we look at and you're like, how are they doing it? These names don't mean anything. The names the Diamondbacks went to the World Series with last year didn't mean much either. So I'm not going to count this team out. Devin Williams' screwball's disgusting. So if they're up in the 9th inning, forget it. I'm not counting this team out. I don't think they should be 8th favorites. I'd put them above some of the teams we're about to talk about. So, no, I'm not counting them out. I think they're being severely underestimated. And I think everyone who's underestimating them is doing them an injustice. Above them, 7th favorites, the Baltimore Orioles. I would put the Brewers over the Orioles. But let's talk Orioles. The Brewers, well, they've got to play loser Mets Braves in the wild card. Fine, whatever. Who cares? Anyway, The Orioles. They're a young team. They were here last year. I think they are also being underestimated. Now, I get it. They've been slow as of late, right? Last couple months have been rough for the Orioles, but they're young. Now they're going to play on pure adrenaline. We're going to see Jackson Holliday in the playoffs. We're going to see Adley Rutschman back there, Gunnar Henderson back there, Anthony Santander back there. Fine, I get it. It's the rotation, because once you get past Corbin Burnes, and you're going to get past Corbin Burnes with all the injuries to this rotation, it becomes a toss-up. It's Zach Eflin, who they went and got from Tampa Bay, and then it's Dean Kramer, who was solid last year. And Corbin Burnes has been rough. He can't control runners on the base paths, and playing against the Royals, you're going to have to do that. The bullpen, I mean, you've got question marks. You don't have a closer. We know this. They just dropped their closer. They just dropped Craig Kimbrell. I don't know. But if they're up 4, I mean, they're going to beat you. They've got Adley Rutschman, who's having a bit of a down year, but he can turn it up at any time. He's a switch hitter. They're Ryan O'Hearn, Ryan Mountcastle, Jackson Holliday, Jordan Westburg, Gunnar Henderson, Anthony Santander, Cedric Mullins, Jorge Mateo. It's a good team. It's a scary lineup. And it's not a lineup you can make mistakes again. They got to play against Kansas City. They got to beat them twice. That's going to be hard. But the Orioles remind me a lot of maybe the Diamondbacks last year, where they were just young and scrappy. Maybe Corbin Burnes and Zach Eflin become these shutdown starters come October. Burnes has been here before. So who knows what you get out of him. 6th favorites are the San Diego Padres. My plus 1100. Now look, they've got to play the winner, quote unquote, of this Braves Mets doubleheader, which starts in an hour and 45 minutes. I'm so excited. I can't wait for that, because that's going to be awesome. I think this is the most complete team in the playoffs. I'm going out on a limb, and my winner is the San Diego Padres for the first time in team history. I don't see a hole in this team. Dylan Cease is going for you game 1. An animal. What a season he's had for the Padres. He threw no hitter this year. He's good. Then you've got Musgrove or King. I think Darvish is coming back. If none of them, you got Martin Perez. Now, the bullpen, the back end of this rotation, you're not beating it. You're just not doing it. If they're up on you in the 6th inning and you don't come back, the Padres are winning. You got to face Jason Adam. You got to face Tanner Scott. And then they've got Robert Suarez to close it. That's the best back end of the rotation. Granted, fine, Suarez isn't the best closer. And I literally mean that by saying he's not the best one. Because, yes, he is definitely, I would say, top 5 in the league, especially amongst the teams in the playoffs right now. He's not the best. The best one is in the playoffs, and he's on the Guardians. But they've got 2 great catchers, Higgy and Diaz. You got Luis Arraez, who's gonna win, who won the batting title yesterday. And what a trade that was. They made that trade early. People thought it was too early, but he ignited that team, because I say it all the time. I get it. We're in an era of power hitting and power pitching, but you still need contact. You still need guys to get on base. You still need table setters. How am I going to eat my dinner without a plate? It's cool if Manny Machado's hitting home runs or Cronenworth, right, or Tatis, but if there's no one on base and these are solo shots, why does it matter? But all of a sudden, when Luis Ariz is getting on, and then Jackson Merrill's hitting a double, Tatis is getting on and he's stealing, and then Donovan Solano's hitting a home run, or Manny Machado, all of a sudden things change. The only hole I see right now for the San Diego Padres, and it's the only weakness that I see for the San Diego Padres, is at shortstop. And it's Ha-Seong Kim being injured, so Xander Bogaerts is playing shortstop for them. It's the only thing. Other than that, the Padres are the team. I don't see anybody beating the Padres. When you look at it, they have a lot of options to move around that infield. Maybe you put Tatis back at short just for the wild card or whatever until Ha-Seong Kim comes back. Or you put Tyler Wade there or I don't know, anybody. Because reality is Xander Bogaerts just doesn't look like a shortstop playing shortstop anymore. He's not it anymore. He needs to be back at second base. But aside from that, guys, the Padres are the best team roster-wise in this playoffs. I don't know who's going to beat them. I don't think anybody's going to beat them. Not in a series. So let's move on. Let's go to the Guardians. Another team that I think is being severely underestimated, because how do you have a Cy Young candidate in your closer, but your fifth favorites to win the World Series? How is that the case? You see, I give it to the starting rotation. There's not much there. There's really not. As much as it's gotten the job done, I said this a few months ago. Do you trust Tanner Bybee if you're Stephen Vogt as your one? Who, granted, is probably going to be the American League Manager of the Year in his first season as the Guardians manager. But after that, who's going? Lively? Maybe. Gavin Williams is apparently the two according to their depth chart. I don't agree with that, but sure. Now, if you get to the ninth inning and the Guardians are winning the game. Emmanuel Clase is a Cy Young candidate as a closer, a guy that pitches one inning. Now, but think about what that means, though. He has to have pitched enough as a closer to where people are saying he should be a Cy Young candidate. It's not just that he's been lights out. It's that the Guardians have put him in a position to pitch that much. And he's gotten the job done every single time. Now, how are they doing it? The lineup. Josh Naylor's having an amazing power year. Jhonkensy Noel, the big Christmas, coming out of nowhere and delivering gifts all over Cleveland. Now, almost might have had a chance at a 40-40-40 season for Jose Ramirez, but the game last night got rained out, unfortunately. Catcher, you've got options. Bo Naylor can hit. He's the better hitting catcher. But Austin Hedges is the better defensive catcher. Andres Jimenez, Ryan Rocchio. I mean, Stephen Kwan was really good most of the season and then just kind of had a downturn, but they got a day off. And then they play the winner of the Astros-Tigers series. So if they play the Astros, things get chippy. Then it gets scary because you don't have a lot of playoff experience in that rotation. Like, sure, Class A, great, but Tanner Bybee, no. Ben Lively, also no. So That's where the question marks are for Stephen Vogt's Guardians. But other than that, they're a great team, and I think they're also being underestimated. Fourth favorites, as we're headed toward the top three, are the Houston Astros at plus 850. Now, here's the thing about the Astros. We know what they can do. They do it year after year after year. And when you look at this team, I mean, they're just scary again. First of all, why is Alex Bregman not in the MVP conversation? That's my thing. What a year they got out of him. And I said it. I mean, it's a contract year. We've seen with Pete Alonso that actually doesn't mean anything. That can make things harder for you because what happened to Pete on his contract year, right? But 260 with a 453 slugging and 26 home runs for Alex Bregman this year. What a year. He's going to get paid this offseason and pretty much was the only constant in that lineup all year and hit them into the playoffs. He was their offense, but they're pitching year after year. Do you know how good of a pitching staff you have to have that you can comfortably put Justin Verlander in the bullpen? Because it's been Framber Valdez, it's been Ronel Blanco. They went and got Yusei Kikuchi, who was struggling as a Blue Jay, and they revamped his season. Hunter Brown, the youngster who looks up to Justin Verlander. He's pitching like a young Justin Verlander. I mean, the team is scary. And then they've got one of the best to ever do it in the bullpen in Josh Hader. They've got Ryan Presley, old man Ryan. He can do it. Now, again, they've got to beat Kansas City. Or I'm sorry, they've got to beat the Tigers. And the Tigers are hot. One thing about Heat, though, is it's eventually going to go out. And what I hate to see is this break, this layoff, this 1 day off, kill that momentum. Again, Tarik Skubal game 1. Does your lineup have enough to hit against Tarik Skubal? Maybe not. But games 2 and 3, and if you can get just enough with the pitching you have, the Astros are the Astros. Can't count them out. Third favorites, my New York Yankees. Now, I'm going to openly say this again, because I'd say it a lot. I didn't have the Yankees winning the division. They surprised me. Now, they've got to face the winner of KC Baltimore. And that's going to be tough for a couple of reasons. One, the back end of the Yankees bullpen is awful. They don't close out games well. On top of that, once you get past Soto and Judge, there's not much in that Yankee lineup. You've got a 5-game series coming up after the layoff, which hasn't been beneficial to teams in baseball, getting that bye week against a team in Kansas City or Baltimore that's going to be 1, young, and 2, coming in with momentum. I don't know how that works for you. And then if you get through that, you got to face another tough team in the ALCS. But if you want Juan Soto to stay, you got to make a run in these playoffs. You can't just make it, because Juan Soto will leave. And so the Yankees, they're playing for a lot more. I think Aaron Boone is also coaching for his job at this point. They've been talking about the window with Judge and Cole and when they can win and when it kind of just becomes a waste of money. So who knows what's going to happen with the Yankees, but as a fan of this team, as a New Yorker, not a lot of confidence. The second favorites, because we're wrapping this up, are the Philadelphia Phillies. And look, they're one of the more complete teams next to the Padres. But I don't have them beating the Padres. I could see them making the NLCS easily. I could see them beating the winner of Milwaukee and Atlanta / New York / Arizona. I can see that happening. I can't see them beating the Dodgers or the Padres in an NLCS. Now, if somehow that team ends up being Atlanta or that team ends up being the Mets or Arizona coming out of that side of the bracket, then that changes things. But again, I'm going to keep saying it. My National League team is the Padres. Now, I love the Phillies. I do. I think they have a phenomenal team. I think what Zach Wheeler's done on the mound has been great. They've just been too up and down in that lineup. Bryce Harper's been up and down. Trey Turner's been up and down. Nick Castellanos, up and down. Alec Bohm, up and down. Now they find ways to get it done, and playoff Bryce Harper is an amazing ball player. Let's see what happens. Second favorites to win the World Series, which means they're also the second favorites to win the National League. But the favorites still are the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, they were the favorites all year to win the American League, the National League West, and they won it. They've been the favorites all year to win the National League pennant. We will see. And now they're also all year, they've been the World Series favorites. And again, we will see. I'm with most of the baseball community on this one in saying I don't think it happens. It's the pitching. It's always been the pitching for the Dodgers. You had to go and make trades to revamp your pitching staff because everyone's hurt. Everyone's hurt. You're not going to have Glasnow, who was your best pitcher all year long. You're not going to have him in the playoffs. You're not going to have Gonsolin. You're not going to have Gratterall out of the bullpen. So you're going with Jack Flaherty as your one. Guess what? Jack Flaherty was a 2 on his old team. That's why they traded him. So he's your one. Yamamoto's never pitched in an American playoff game. Granted, the one benefit I give the Dodgers with Yamamoto is his innings are low. Because he got injured and he's coming back, his innings are low, his first year out of Japan, so his arm is going to be sort of fresh. But now, if you get past those first two guys, which, again, them being the 1 seed, you're probably going to have to face San Diego in a 5-game series. You got to throw Walker Buehler out there. He's been awful since coming off injury. And then who's going again? Jack Flaherty, we're going 3-man. Then he gets hit. And then you've got Yamamoto in a clincher in game 5, and he gets hit. So I don't like the Dodgers. I get it. It's probably the most potent lineup ever created at this point. Maybe topping the Murderers Row Yankees from back in the day. Between Teoscar, between Ohtani, between Mookie and Freddie and Max Muncy, who's a playoff demon. And then they've got Tommy Edman, and you've got Kevin Kiermaier, and the bench is super deep. I get it. Look, I get it. I see it. But pitching wins championships. And there's not enough pitching on this Dodgers roster to win a championship. There's just not. So, them being favorites to me by 10, right? It's plus 350 for them, plus 360 for the Phillies. I think that should be changed. I think the Phillies should be above them. The Phillies have the pitching for it. They've got Wheeler, Nola, playoff experienced pitchers who've gotten the job done in the playoffs. I kind of give them the edge. But if it's up to me, my team is San Diego right now. Again, Mets, Braves getting started in just a bit. Make sure you're following us on TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, and Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter with Baseball Odds Watch. And yeah, let's watch some preseason, postseason baseball between the Braves and Mets. Good luck if you're a Braves or Mets fan. Also, like, kind of bad luck if you're a Diamondbacks fan, I guess. Break a leg is kind of what you want to say here. No final thoughts. We'll probably do another one of these next week or in a few days once things round out. Playoffs, baby. We'll see you guys next week.